It's more freshwater biomass than the entire continent of Africa. It's also one of the most polluted rivers in the world, transporting an estimated 40,000 tonnes of plastic waste to the ocean each year.
By 2050, the regional population will increase by more than 110 million people, only increasing the amount of plastic pollution. Near the mouth of the Mekong lies the Coral Triangle, one of the world's most important marine habitats.
Mekong River of Plastic will be the first scientific study of microplastic transport through a mega river.
Our team is undertaking one of the most comprehensive studies of the way in which plastic is used by communities that live along the riverbanks, is disposed of by those people that live along the river, how plastic leaks essentially into the environment, and understanding the ultimate fate of this material as it fluxes through this great river system. The team will be addressing questions such as how is microplastic transported? What controls the way in which plastic is transformed from big macro particles to microplastics as the plastic is degraded in the environment? How the interaction of plastics with that biology ultimately controls the fate of where this plastic ends up. Over the course of the project, the team will be sampling, they'll be interviewing the local communities, they'll be trying to understand the relationship between the people, the plastic and the natural environment. The results and outcomes of the study will be used to not only inform policy and drive some change in terms of developing a circular economy for plastics in this region of the world, but also to educate and raise awareness of the populations that live there so that they can take ownership of this issue and begin to deal with the problems that some of this plastic pollution is already having on both their lives and their livelihoods.
For years, we have struggled with plastic waste flowing into our oceans from rivers. 10 rivers in the world are responsible for up to 95% of it. 8 of them are in Asia, including the Mekong and the Ganges. These rivers transport millions of tons of plastic pollution each year into the oceans. The UN Environment Programme's Countermeasure project is using the latest technology to fight the plastic problem. Satellite data is fed into a big, clever computer, which analyzes demographic and geographical information to find leakage hotspots. On-site surveys allow us to categorize the pollution, and travel websites are used to find tourist concentrations. There's also an app for people to scout for dump sites in their own community and share findings with the project. Drones scout the landscape, taking high-resolution photos, picking up the location of plastics to be analyzed with machine learning algorithms. The Albatross is an underwater machine analyzing the flow of microplastics in the waterways. Data from nearly 1,000 locations are providing a never-before-seen view of plastic pollution in the Mekong and the Ganges. The countermeasure research tracks backwards to find where the plastic originates, allowing us to fix the problem before it begins. It's not just big cities causing the problem. It begins in smaller, unexpected places. In Vientiane, raincoats and fishing nets were a worry. In Ubon Ratchathani, Thailand, heavy storms flush out waste plastics into the Mekong when not well managed. In Chiang Rai, the flower festival saw carelessly discarded pots pollute the riverbanks. And in Vietnam, where the Mekong meets the sea, the polypropylene pollutants filled the waterways. Tourist hotspots like the Taj Mahal in Agra need better waste management, and communities like slums are more vulnerable. Ports and piers for tourism, transport, and cargo are also a concern. Together, with the knowledge mapped out, we can support governments, guide communities, and take action to beat plastic pollution.
Hey, good morning to every one of you. Let me welcome you to this stakeholder workshop. Actually, we have selected key personnel in the plastic industry to participate in this workshop. I'm wondering whether it's a little too early for all of them to join. However it is, we'll go with the proceedings. As you're aware, we are on the Countermeasure 2 program for the promotion of action against marine plastic litter in Asia and Pacific. I would like to welcome all the resource persons and the key stakeholders to this workshop. On behalf of the Ministry of Environment, United Nations Environment Project, UNEP, International Union for Conservation of Nature, that's IUCN, and the Federation of Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Sri Lanka, FCCISL, and all the behalf of all the other organizing committee members. This is the second workshop we are going to conduct. And for the first workshop, we have invited some of the plastic item manufacturers, packaging companies, food processors association, university students, and some of the chamber members, mainly operating around the Kalani River and the Mi Oya, around that area. This workshop, we have selected the stakeholders really involved with the plastic industry. Therefore, I believe this will be an event for each other to share knowledge rather than listening to the to lectures or presentations of anything. So this can be a real workshop. The people must be raising questions, asking, sharing knowledge. So that is the kind of thing that we really want to happen. I kindly request all the participants to actively participate in this session. If you have any clarifications during the session, you can use the raise hand option. Then we can quickly give you an option to speak to you or to raise your question. And in the meantime, you can use the chat box option also to send your questions while even a presentation is going on. If there is anything relevant to that one, we will try to do just end of that session. We will try to clarify, because that will be more useful for all the participants rather than we wait for the question and answer session. But however it is, we have kept a larger time slot for question and answer session. So whereas there we can, discuss the matters with the expert panel, the presenters, and within this group, there can be very knowledgeable persons in this segment. So therefore, it is we are really looking forward to have a fruitful discussion. We have sent you a Google form also with some questions, and we would like you to answer during the session or just after the session. And these are the very general basic questions. But of course, if we have an idea of how we can progress, because the thing is, sometimes the perception of me can be different to somebody else in this audience. So if there is something for us to learn from each other, we believe that will be very worthwhile in this exercise. So I will just briefly do that introduction and go for the introduction of the first speaker. Actually, today, as for the agenda, we wanted to actually Dr. Musharraf Ahmad consented to come and make a presentation, but since he have to go to the embassy to submit his passport for some urgent travel, so he's unable to come back still. Of course, I believe that during the session he can join our program. Until then, so let me introduce Novin Shaffer. The Novin Shaffer is a program management officer with the Countermeasure 2 project, working for United Nations Environment Program, Asia Pacific Office, which he joined in early 2021. Novin has over 15 years of experience working on humanitarian development and environment projects with the United Nations, as well as with the variety of international donor agencies and NGOs. He has worked at head office, regional and national levels, with about 10 years spent in Southeast Asia, over 8 of which in Myanmar. His experience includes 10 years with the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, UNOCHA, is a variety of roles working on policy development, analysis, program management, fund management, coordination and communication. Before he joined UNEP, he worked as an advisor to one of the biggest humanitarian funds in Myanmar. His previous work includes position with the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, the European Union, as well as several NGOs. He holds an MA in law and diplomacy with a focus on environmental policy and humanitarian aid. So let me give the forum to Novin. Novin, you can make your presentation.
Thank you so much, Kirti, for the very kind introduction, and welcome everybody to this very important workshop. Today, I hope that you can see my presentation. If not, then please let me know.
Yeah, I can see.
Okay, great. Thank you so much to all of you for joining today. This is, as you know, as Kirti has introduced, this is part of the Countermeasure 2 project that we are implementing through the United Nations Environment Program Regional Office, where I am sitting today. Usually we are not coming to the office, but today I'm at the office here in Bangkok. So I'm very happy to join you from here. If you allow me, I will make a very short presentation to give a background of the project overall. Katie has already kindly introduced me. I'm the project manager for this project, and I hope that this presentation will give you a general overview of what the project is about and will help you in the discussions. The Countermeasure 2 project, as we call it, is otherwise known as the Promotion of Action Against Marine Plastic Litter in Asia and the Pacific. So the project focuses specifically on this objective. We are looking at the generation, the sharing and dissemination of scientific knowledge on plastic pollution in very specific regions here of Asia and specific rivers as well. So Ganges, Mekong. So for Ganges, it's India. For the Mekong, it's the 4 lower Mekong river basin countries, and the 2 rivers that Kjerti mentioned in Sri Lanka now. So the idea is really to generate scientific knowledge, to share the scientific knowledge, and then also with that to inform policy and decision making. So one of the reasons we are gathered today is to do that dissemination of what the project is about, and hopefully inform decisions that our stakeholders, including you, are taking on issues related to plastic pollution. Here, just a quick overview, geographically speaking, of where we are. As I mentioned, we are focusing on the Ganges, but only on the Ganges that is as it flows through India, not Bangladesh, under this project. So we have 4 locations here that you can see along the Ganges River. And then we have the 4 lower Mekong River basin countries. So we have Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, and 6 locations along the Mekong. And then we have the 2 rivers in Sri Lanka. And here is just a more detailed map of Vietnam, where we have an additional 45 locations where we are also doing the microplastic sampling. Here is a bit more on the substance of what the project is about. We are working according to 3 result areas, as we call them. As I mentioned, it's about the knowledge generation first. So here we are gathering macroplastic and microplastic information on macroplastic and microplastic pollution in rivers. So this is done through specific surveys, and they have now also been conducted already in Sri Lanka. So we will be hearing over the next few weeks and months about the results of those surveys. And in addition, we're also working on a plastic leakage product database. This is specifically for the Mekong, but could be an inspiration also for Sri Lanka, where we're trying to identify the sources of the plastic pollution, and specifically the products that are the most common products that cause this plastic pollution. So this is, I think, a first in terms of similar projects that we're trying to identify which products are the origin of this plastic pollution. So we're very much looking forward to receiving the results over the next few months. The second result is, as I mentioned, the sharing and dissemination of this knowledge that we are creating and gathering. So here we are currently working on launching a social media campaign, which is linked to the Global Clean Seas campaign, which some of you may be familiar with if you are following these topics and UNEP. This will focus specifically on the impact of plastic pollution on rivers. So in January and February and March, please look out for these messages that we will be putting out. At the same time, we're also mapping plastic leakage hotspots, and we are doing so with partners here in Thailand, at the university in Thailand, and who have also developed an artificial intelligence image recognition tool that they have developed with the help of Google, and that helps us automatically detect on images the plastic pollution, the key items of plastic pollution. At the same time, we're also now working on building a knowledge platform, which will pull together the information from this project, but also generally speaking on plastic pollution in rivers, specifically in Asia, but also more broadly. And we're linking this to another platform that is being built by UNEP globally on marine plastic litter. And this is known under the name of the Global Partnership on Marine Litter. So again, over the next few months, you can look out for this platform that will be launched in March. It will be linked to the GPML. The third result is the generation of policies and informing policies that are formulated by local, national, and regional governments. And here we are also, apart from influencing the decisions at the local level, which is perhaps the most essential part, we are also looking at national policies, but also global policies. So that's why here you see the G20, the group of 20 countries mentioned, or the Forum of the Ministers and Environment Authorities of Asia, which also UNEP supports as a secretariat. And at the same time, and here this is where you come in, also the policy and business dialogues on river plastic pollution reduction. So we are very keen to have this stakeholder workshop as part of these efforts. Just quickly to perhaps demonstrate in a more graphic representation what we're looking at. So here is a schematic of how we look for these plastic leakage hotspots and how we do the analysis, and how it ultimately informs our advocacy. So here you see the different areas where plastic leakage can happen, and you see the connection also to the marine litter, as we know that plastic pollution in rivers is a major contributor to plastic pollution in the marine environment as well. Now, perhaps just to give you an idea also, since we're really focusing on generating scientific and sort of information that is based on actual surveys on the ground, not just estimates, we also have a scientific advisory group. So we're working with these 11 members of the scientific community, 11 academics, and if some of you have been following the plastic pollution issue, you may have come across the name of Jenna Jembak, who is who wrote a seminal paper that really started this whole discussion a few years ago, and really brought the issue of plastic pollution in oceans and rivers to the next level. And just to give you an idea, also we have many partners that we're working with, either directly. We have contracts with about 24 partners who are helping us implement this project. And you see here, of course, IUCN represented for Sri Lanka, and we are collaborating with many partners as well. And you see the Sukrimo Ganga Secretariat represented here, and also the Ministry of Environment, Sri Lanka, and many others, including some names such as Google and National Geographic, which help us really sort of raise the issue at the global level. And last but not least, some highlights perhaps just very quickly. Micro and microplastic surveys are ongoing despite the COVID situation, and we've reached out to at least about 690,000 people already over social media. And we have put out some reports, including on the impacts of plastic pollution on migratory species, which have received a lot of attention, including in the media and globally. So we're very happy about this. But without further ado, I will hand it back over to you, Clarity, to lead us through the rest of the meeting. Thank you so much for your attention, and I hope this is a helpful introduction. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Naveen, for your presentation. I believe it's quite clear for everyone. You know what UNEP is doing right now, and you know what are the things they have already done, and what is going to happen in the future, and you know what kind of things they will do in the future, and especially in Sri Lanka. This is going to be a pilot project. You know, as I mentioned before, the Kalani River and Mi Oya will be taken as the pilot project. And since Sri Lanka is a country has 103 rivers, you know, the tendency of getting plastics into rivers, and you know, finally rivers are taking them to sea is very evident all the time. So almost all the stakeholders will have a lot of experience on that. So we'll go into that at the question and answer session. But if you have anything to clarify from Novin, I can give you a few minutes. If anyone has, maybe you can raise your hand and I can give you opportunity to clarify any point in this presentation. Looks like no questions. It's a clear presentation, I believe. Sena, Dr. Ananda Mallavatantri, has he joined or is he joining? Sena, can I know Dr. Ananda is joining right now? I do not see him here.
So, Kirti, I think Ananda said that he's joining now.
Yeah.
In the meantime, if there are any questions.
Yeah, that's what I suggested, but looks like no questions from the Novin session. Shall I wait till Ananda join in to introduce him, or?
I think we can. Yes, I think he said he's joining now.
Good morning. My name is Sally from Nature Tech Lanka.
Yes.
Mr. Novin, I want to know that for Sri Lanka, the rivers you are going to do the projects, clearing projects. What kind of a project you are going to starting up or implementing to do the social work?
Thank you very much for the question. I think the best person to answer that question is actually Mr. Ananda, who just joined. So I'm assuming that that Ananda is about to make a presentation. So perhaps we can let Ananda make the presentation that will probably answer your questions. Is that okay, Clarity?
Yeah, I think
thank
so.
you.
I think so. Yes. So let me, Ananda, you join at the exactly right time. Let me first introduce Dr. Anand Mallavatantri to the audience. He's a BSc chemistry graduate at the Columbia University. He obtained his Masters of Science in the Environment Science and the PhD also from the Washington State University. He has long international development experience with USAID, UNDP, and IUCN. More than 30 years of work experience in the government of Sri Lanka and in United States, United Nations, private sector, with the industry, research, and university teaching. And of course, he's a person demonstrated leadership in coordination of multi-sector and multi-stakeholder programs. And he has a huge exposure to a range of subjects, areas such as air, water, soil, waste, industry, disaster management, and many, many more. He was involved in successful projects at national and international levels and successfully resource mobilizations through international government, private, and various foundations. He has wide experience of working with collaborative projects with Government of Sri Lanka, UNDP, UNICEF, FAO, WFP, ILO, and UNEP in Sri Lanka and in other countries too. Right now, Ananda is looking after the IUCN operations in Sri Lanka. So let me give you the opportunity to make your presentation, Ananda.
Thank you, Keith. Thanks for that long introduction. I think I should start warning people not to go. It's really, I mean, humbling. Thank you very much.
But you have so many things. I briefly did it.
Good morning, everyone. So today is a very special day for us that we talked about plastics, which is a burning issue in Sri Lanka as well as in the global side. Specifically because the challenges of microplastics. You may have heard from Naveen how bad it is when it gets to the food cycle. So with that seriousness, UN Environment has launched multiple programs along with many other development partners. So we are very fortunate to have the countermeasure project that was launched in other part of the world in Sri Lanka, going through the Ministry of Environment, and then we are very happy to play a facilitator and a key role in that. So with that, let me explain the project and what we do to support the government of Sri Lanka and people. And let me pull out a set of slides. Kirti, hopefully you should be able to see the slides.
Yeah, can see well, yes.
All right, great. So as Naveen touched upon earlier, the countermeasure 2 has number of areas, and for Sri Lanka, we have picked a number of, out of the whole bag, couple of things to do as initial measures. One is this plastic hotspot identification to know where plastics are and what type of plastics are they, and then to come up with certain pilot solutions, focusing on Kallan River and Mahaway, and now we are hitting the beaches also. The important part is that this program came at the right time when the government ramped up the work to protect the rivers. In Sinhala, we call Surakimu Ganga. In English, it's a protect rivers. Rivers has to be protected in many ways. The encroachment is one, but pollution is the other. So the pollution front, we have the fertilizers, pesticides, industrial effluents, and the latest addition is the plastics. So in terms of plastics, Sri Lanka has gone on record in the world. And good or bad, there are a lot of arguments about this data, but whatever it is now, Sri Lanka is identified as the top 20 countries, putting plastics, especially to the oceans, because oceans are of much interest to everybody. The feature in Sri Lanka is that the Sri Lanka, we have this cone shape, the central hills and the 103 rivers, starting from the central hills, taking everything we do on the land to ocean. So we call it the connectivity, the reach to reef connectivity, where we have all the pollution landing in places. Some places are very important to us, the coral reefs, the biodiversity, the seagrasses, dolphins, whales, and also the food, the fish we consume. When the microplastics along with the absorbed chemicals get in, they come back to us, and we end up getting all sort of diseases, and some are really take your quality of life away. So this is the context in Sri Lanka, and then there are number of varieties of plastics we have to deal with. And as indicated, these are the ocean plastics. These are most of the pictures we have taken. There are a lot of fish nets, nylon nets, tangled up in coral reefs, and even tangled up around turtles.
Anand, it looks like, your presentation is not moving.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Just give me a second.
Okay.
Now you see the slide.
Still on the first slide, Anand.
Right now, let me use this modality rather than going in the presentation modality. Is it moving now?
Yeah, it's moving now. Yeah.
But I think sometimes for some systems, my apologies. I will stay on this slide mode for the delivery without going into the presentation mode. And then hopefully I can expand this a little bit more. Right. So I think I was explaining this ridge-to-reef connectivity in Sri Lanka and the Sri Lanka's position in plastic pollution, which is fairly high in the global domain. So now a bunch of pictures, and the most interesting picture is the one on the right side, the bottom. This is magnified images of inside the washing machine. So you can imagine all the shirts and the things that we wash, they release a lot of plastic elements, and we add all these things to environment. And then we heard the express pearl and all these added plastics in the western coast of Sri Lanka. The final part is when you get this material into the ecosystem, they get into our food chain through various means, through milk, through food. At the end, not only the plastics also carry a lot of adsorbed or absorbed pollutants. Some pollutants are really, really nasty. So they make us sick. And then when the life quality goes down, the whole nation gets sick. So I think that's the size. There are a lot of medical research now connecting the microplastics to health. So I'm going to delve on that. But today, within the next 10 minutes or so, I will explain the initial work on Countermeasure 2 in Sri Lanka, along with the protection of rivers, so Surakimu Ganga program. We are trying to do. In front of this, we had been working on this extended producer responsibility program as a private-public partnership in Sri Lanka. Now it's ready to be implemented in 2022. Extended producer responsibility is that a party who produced the plastic is made responsible to collect and dispose the plastic in a responsible manner. Sometimes it helps to identify what are the plastics and what are the sources of plastics in the environment, so that we could go and remind those producers that, okay, you promised to take the plastic back and recycle or reuse, but your material is now in that river and this river and that ocean front. So the hotspot analysis will help us to get into that. But that is not enough. We need to identify, because there are a lot of plastics already out there. So we need to come up with mechanism to collect those before it gets to our food chain. So this task is so big. So we need people of all sort. We need the industry. We need people like you. We need the community. We need the government policymakers and everybody. So that's the effort the UN environment is leading as countermeasure, creating counter programs to minimize this waste, working with like-minded programs and like-minded groups. And so today is very important because like-minded groups are coming from different quarters. So you are on one of the groups. So the program elements right now is this hotspot identification, and then trapping of plastics, and analyzing microplastics in stream water, and then education awareness, including citizen science, to highlight the health plastic linkages, and then to develop partnership like what we do now, so that we all come together to address this slow onset disaster, I would call it. So as pilot sites in Sri Lanka, we have Ministry of Environment has requested us to consider 2 river basins to start with, the Mahaway River Basin and the Kallan River Basin. And then also to focus on the beach side where you could see a lot of plastic pieces, including those coming from the Express Pearl. So this is one experience. We have been working in Kallan River for a while, and this actually plastics will come here very soon. But we have been monitoring the nitrogen, phosphorus, and the sediments and the microbiology things. So the Kallan River Basin, as you know, starts in the Siripada and then ends up in Modra near Colombo. We can see the pollution. These cartwheels indicate the suitability for bathing or drinking or the fish and aquatic life. So we can see at the beginning, the quality is very good, not that bad, but towards Colombo, things get really bad. So we could focus the same approach. We could use the same approach to plastic management also. So we had selected certain sampling sites that are marked in this green and red. The red ones are the ones coming from tributaries, and the green ones are in the river, and then where the river falls into the ocean. So we have already sampled, and we are collaborating with a number of Sri Lankan universities, Sri Jayawardenepura Open University, Peradeniya, and the Institute of Fundamental Studies in Kandy. So then we are sending these samples to Pirika, Japan. Some samples and some are being analyzed here locally. The Mahaway, the same story. We have picked certain sampling locations in the river, as well as the water coming from the tributaries and getting into the Mahaway. And in the coastal area also, we completed sampling last week from Mathura to, actually we went a little bit more above to Mana. Now this map covers up to Kandakulya in Kalpiti. So we have sampled sand profiles in the beachfront, as well as the nearshore water samples for plastics. So as indicated earlier, the plastics can come from all kinds of shapes and forms. So our water we sample and the sand we sample has all these pieces. So we are using one of the very well-developed sampling device by Pirika Inc., Japan. And the countermeasure project introduced the Pirika Japan to Sri Lanka and capacitated Open University to have one of the equipment. So we are using it. And then once you sample, it allows you to sample plastics in a known volume of water. We are using a mesh size of 300 microns or 0.3 millimeter. So anything smaller than that get collected, bigger than that get collected, and then we can fraction it. And then we do 2 types of analysis. One is the microscopic analysis, where you could identify certain type of plastics, and also the spectroscopic analysis, where we get these different peaks when you run it for different plastics. So we would know what type of plastics are in the sample, and then from that plastics we can infer some of the sources where the plastics got generated. We really wish we can go to the manufacturer itself, but sometimes there are limitations. But we know whether they are coming from, for example, the turfs like artificial grasses, or the bottles, the polythenes, this lunch styrofoam boxes, the laminated plastics, that can be identified. So with that, we can engage different stakeholders. And then the hotspot identification is the next item we do in addition to the water quality monitoring. That's a mobile application, and that has 2 elements. One is a mobile application where we are just starting that application where you could go to a pile and then point it towards the pile and then enter your estimates of what type of plastics. It needs a little bit of education. So we are starting to educate certain groups so that they could use this mobile application and start documenting the different places and the type of things accumulated. The second application is a GoPro camera. It's a drive around application where the software sends the plastic and then it will start adding the data into a database. And both of these applications are coming from Asian Institute of Technology, Bangkok, and Countermeasure 2 project, UNEP is supporting them. So Sri Lanka will have this, hopefully early next year, we should be able to put this out and even make to a citizen's science application. So we could even get all Sri Lankans to use mobile phones and start documenting the type of plastics they see and they see around. And the third component is that we are using some of the trapping devices. We already started making some of these devices in Sri Lanka. The first device we are working with Mass Holdings and Sri Lanka and Kayal Institute that developed this the collecting device with the belt. We are looking at the possibilities of fitting electric renewable energy outboard motors on that. Then we have a number of other designs coming up. We tested one set locally in St. Sebastian Canal 2 weeks ago. Those are like paddle things that 2 people can maneuver or 1 person can maneuver. We developed 2 things. So all these things will be put into the Sri Lankan streams on pilot basis starting next year. So those are the main initiatives, and we already started working on communications and outreach. Even today morning, we had a discussion with our communication consultant. So there are a lot of jingles and things like that coming up very soon to get the people's attention why plastic pollution is important to our health and our how it affect our national development and the quality of life. So we are really happy that to be part of the Sri Lankan National Action Plan on Plastic Waste Management, where there are multiple agencies are partnering through the Ministry of Environment, and we sincerely hope that we all can come together to help Sri Lanka and people to minimize plastic pollution and also to encourage the recycling and reuse of plastics. So plastic is needed. There's no question that some people say you can do away with plastic, but plastic is essential to our life for various reasons. The food, to keep food safer, and also the transport costs are linked to the weight. Plastics gives the lowest weight. So like that, there are possibilities. There are a lot of surgery applications of plastics. So then it's an essential evil in one sense. So as long as we know the quality and the quantity, we should be able to manage it. So thank you very much for listening, and over to you, Kirti.
Thank you, Dr. Ananda. I think it's a very clear, nice presentation. I believe that everyone received a lot of information out of your presentation. As Dr. Ananda Mallavatantri explained, we are using from the Countermeasure 1 project, the initiatives they have done and the development took place there is already transferred to Sri Lanka. I think the Countermeasure 2 in Sri Lanka is a kind of advanced effort of the same thing. And we have gone into mobile applications and various using vehicle and tracking the plastic around the roads and things like that. And now it has gone up to a stage where they can track even the brands, and it's that advanced. And of course, by having such facility, I believe, so we can gather different teams, like everyone will understand, okay, I'm a producer, that I have a social responsibility over this one. So then the other people, the users, they also will think on the same lines. So with all that, if anyone has anything to clarify from Dr. Ananda, I can give some time for that. I think the previous question, can you raise again, or I cannot recollect the whole thing.
I'm Sally. Mr. Anand, that the program, what you do, what can, as we have been participant for this workshop, what are the things that from our side to be supportable for the project, and same time how we can be participant on these projects?
Sally, may I ask, what's your organization?
Yeah. Yes, my name is Sally. I'm from Nature Tech Lanka. We are Nature Tech is one of the biocompostable brand that we sells to manufacturers to do the compostable material like lunch sheet, siri bags, and other apparel industry, and injection molding like hangers, cutleries, like that. So in Sri Lanka, we are trying to promote the compostable material to implement it, because it is one of the key areas that you have been Sri Lankan. The team has been identified to make it a successful thing. So I prefer that I can help also on this.
Right. I think thanks, Sally, for that question and also explaining what you do. In this process of managing plastic, there are a couple of essential elements. The first element is that what are the alternatives that people can use instead of single-use plastics? I think you're coming big way in that area. The second area is that how do you increase the circularity? How do you take products and make alternative products so that they don't get into the plastic waste stream? So I think there again, I think you're on that track as well, as I hear. In Sri Lanka now, still we have this big problem. We got one solution to waste management, that is Kerala Pitya burning. But right now it's indiscriminate burning, and a lot of value material that has value goes and get burned. So then I think what you are doing in a little bit of expanded form or elaborated or innovative form can get to that level and then provide now, because PET now, I think Sri Lanka got a fairly good handle with the number of companies doing the yarns and the threads and all that. But there are a lot of other materials that needs to be absorbed into the circularity. Then as a citizen, I think we all have a role to start talking about the health aspects of plastics, advantages, disadvantages, and then start teaching our kids and our future generations. So that's another role. So I think we'll be delighted to talk to you more and then work with you in any way that we can collaborate. Mr. Senapiris will pass our contacts. Otherwise, I think there are multiple ways that we can get connected. So you are doing some excellent work. So we'll be delighted to help you and also to work together on this national cause. Thank you. Thank you, Sally.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sally, for the question, and thank you, Ananda, for answering well on that one. As Dr. Ananda mentioned, I think we have a thing that here we have to build a team for one course. Like, I mean, finally, what we should look at is no plastic will go to the rivers, and there's nothing will be in our sea. So that's the final goal that we have to, or all of us has to achieve. But being a country has 103 rivers. Now, I was told during the last heavy rainy season, the Mioya was completely cleaned up. There was hardly any plastics and all gone to sea. So that means when there is a heavy water flow, automatically everything will be washed off to the sea. So there is a tremendous chance that, you know, where we can protect early. When we don't do that, it will be very hard when it goes to the sea. So therefore, every one of us can contribute in different ways to protect our rivers and sea. Any other questions? If there is with relation to Dr. Ananda's presentation, we can take it up now because
කීර්ති මේ සිංහලෙන් ඇහුවත් කමක් නැහැ ගැටලුවක් නැහැ.
කිසිම ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ. අපිට උත්තර දෙන්න පුළුවන්. And of course, you know, Mr. Mahinda won't be attending because he has to attend another urgent meeting and he was called for that. So therefore, we have a little more time. So if you have any questions, you can raise your hand, and or we can you can unmute and speak straight away also.
කීර්ති මේ මම රික්වෙස්ට් එකක් කරන්නම් දැන් මෙතන ඉන්න මේ group එකේ composition එක අනුව දැන් අපි calendar එක ගත්තොත් now we are looking for companies to take the leadership in local areas to do the cleaning and recycling and all that, and working with communities.
Yes.
So we can come and organize the communities and do that kind of work. But we would like the custodians of the champions in given areas to work with the DS officers and the other citizens in that area. So that also goes for this hotspot analysis and plastic collection and streamlining the municipal collection processes so that the value material not get into the burning process. So we are looking at, now we got several tea states coming forward in upstream Callan River, so that saying that they will take care of their areas. But we like to see more and more in any one of those river basins to come forward, so that it's not a huge effort, but it's a good field thing and a good CSR and sustainability initiative for any. It's difficult. We know this is not the best time economically, but it will not cost much. So we assure that we will probably help on the organization and things like that. But we need partners in the sustainability long term. We can help on the beginning, but the handholding has to be there for probably another 10-15 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ananda.
Kirti, can I add one more thing to what Ananda said? I think.
Yeah.
I think one of the very important thing is that the project will end in few months, but that we have to keep continuing the identifying all these hotspots and then following it up. What Ananda did has to be continued in the future, which can be done, I think, mostly by the participants here and all the other relevant the organizations contributing in a small way, not fully taking the responsibility, but as a group, everybody, I think most of the plastic manufacturers and even recyclers can work together and help the IUCN as well as other organizations to continue this work. So sustainability of this project remains with the others. The IUCN alone cannot continue this because it needs the people, of course, resources, money we may be able to find, but the resources are required as human resources. So I think this is where the participants can contribute some way.
Yes, thank you, Sena, for your inputs there. I think Anand, you can stop screen sharing, and we can, if we have anybody else. I think I see Ajit, who's the Secretary General of the FCCISL, also in the audience. We didn't call this time any of our chamber members. I'm sure that we have chambers around the Kalani River and Mioya, both quite effective and efficient chambers are there. I think what Anand mentioned right now can be taken over by some of the chamber leaders also as a national support to have clean rivers. Ajit, do you have anything to comment, or can we do something with Dr. Anand and these chambers, and for them to come back with some proposals to have as Dr. Anand explained for long term?
Yeah, good morning, Keerthi, and once again the congratulations for all your efforts. And due to some technical issues, I managed to join a little later. I think, as you rightly said, Keerthi, we can have a special, maybe an online kind of a meeting with the chambers bordering these two rivers, and also in general, that might be a good message for you to get it across the island as well, because this is basically a national disaster if we do not do anything. So we'll definitely have in the new year, in the coming year, we'll have now AGM is also coming, and we'll also do a presentation at our AGM also. You can, I think, do it. We'll put that to the agenda, and then all the members coming from all parts of the island will get the idea about this project. But I think that's the way to go.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Anand. We will also try to give the maximum support. Today we didn't want to invite any of the chamber members. We thought specifically we will invite the manufacturers and the recyclers, and that segment mainly. So they are the people who's in this audience. I'm sure that they can contribute in different ways with different ideas, different knowledge that they have to us, because what happens is, for us also it's a learning process. And many of your ideas can be valuable to us to move this project forward. If there is anything, if anyone wants to add at this stage, we can do it, or if not, we can go for the next presentation.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, I am Priyanjit. I am from Phoenix Industries, plastic manufacturer. This is the largest, one of the largest plastic manufacturer in Sri Lanka. And myself and a few other members joined the meeting, and from Phoenix, and Chaminda is also joined. He's under R&D, and I am looking after the manufacturing of Phoenix. And this really very good meeting, and a very timely meeting, and we really appreciate that. I think on behalf of Phoenix, I have to say that we have already developed a very sustainable program inside Phoenix as well outside Phoenix to support this developed national action plan of plastic waste management. And also we are lively and we are weekly working towards, and we have already taken a lot of actions to make it successful. And as the EPR extended producer responsibility, so we are also started a lot of activities and initiations to support government and all the institute that introduce, and especially CEA to conduct the activities collaboratively with manufacturers, as you mentioned. So talking a few suggestions from Phoenix, I think we have totally seen that there are no much efforts from government and the like ministries to educate people. I think we have to educate more and more people. For an example, like children from the schools, we have to start from the schools, and as a Phoenix, as CSR activities, we also can support, and we can come with you, and we have a lot of programs inside. We also want to like educate people. No, normally I am from University of Moratuwa, and then we have done a lot of training programs about plastics and collecting programs to Jawaharlal University with the support of Professor Shanta Madhuvaki of University of Moratuwa, like that. So we can support and we can educate people and come with you. And again, with this program, today's session, I think we are very near to Maoya. Maoya is crossing Badalgam area. So if you need Dr. Anand, our support, I can closely work with you, and we have a good team and we can support you. So Chamind is also joining in this meeting. So we both can be join with you these efforts and support you. And so I'm telling we need to educate people. For example, the plastic. So for example, I visited some industry, I cannot tell the name. They also trying to recycle plastics. They want to recycle, but when I saw the board, they have mentioned some LLDP item, they have mentioned PP item. So they don't know. So recycling marks. So I know that the quality of this recycled plastic is getting lower, because you know that it's a mix of plastics. Although they think that this PP, it's not PP, this LLDP. So we know that. So it's very important that the recycling knowledge across the government and across the industries, across the especially school children. We have to start from the school children. This is the way we have to take this to all over the country. So from Phoenix, we're really happy to join with you and work with you. And we have a very good team. We have already started. So that's what Dr. Anand, Mr. Kirti, and we have to tell. So we're really happy for this today's session, and we're really looking forward to join with you and do a good thing to the country.
Priyantha, thank you. Thanks a lot for your commitment towards this course that, all of us, trying to build a team to support this endeavor. So we can count on you. Dr. Ananda, you got a good partner today. That's happy news for us. And in the meantime, as you mentioned, that we are also in the process of developing some videos for school children and some of the material, on poster, that kind of stuff. Whereas we also believe we did a perception survey. Out of the results from the perception survey, still we're trying to get into the cross areas, how one answer can relate to a few other lines that we are in the process of doing that right now. It's a kind of a data analytic work. After that, we will be looking at seriously on this area, but however it is already, we are in the process of doing some videos and some graphical work to educate the school children. What we are intending to do is to the children to go and tell the mother, father, and the other household members, තාත්තවා මේ කරන වැඩේ වැරදි නැත්නම් අම්මේ මෙහෙම නෙමෙයි මේක කරන්න ඕනේ. So that kind of message if you can give, so immediately they will stop. That we have realized that we are in that process. Dr. Anand, anything to add there?
Actually, thanks for that, Chaminda, and the offer from Phoenix. It's a very valuable one, especially the Maoya don't have much caretakers. So I think we'll take up on that offer, and let's continue this dialogue with Phoenix and other partners who are coming forward through this discussion. Thank you very much.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. If there are no questions, of course, we have question and answer session. We can take it up more questions there. So let me introduce our next speaker, Nihal Kure. Nihal Kure is a graduate from the University of Ceylon. He obtained BSc Honours in Mechanical Engineering and postgraduate diploma in Industrial Engineering from Open University of Sri Lanka. He's a chartered mechanical engineer of Institute of Engineers Sri Lanka. He's a director of Business and Industry Development Service Private Limited. He started his career at Ceylon Cement Corporation and has over 40 years of experience and in public and private sector. He worked at Project SMED, developed to support the small and medium enterprises by FCCISL. He was able to extend services to SMEs right around the country. Notable work done including setting up Cleaner Production Center, UNEP Green Gas Emission Reduction Project, UNIDO Subcontracting Exchange Project, Technical Consultancy for Post-Tsunami Back to Business Project. His special interest in the plastic, dye and mold industry lead to many related projects, including preparation of the National Action Plan for Plastic Waste Management in Sri Lanka. He is a member of the National Industry Policy Formulation Committee. So let me invite Engineer Nihal Kure to address you. Nihal, over to you.
Can you share the, give me the share?
You want us to?
I can do that.
Yeah, you try to share. It's okay.
Okay.
In case if there's a difficulty, let me know.
Can you see it?
Did not come yet. Ah, yes. Yeah.
It's okay, no? Right. Okay. Right.
Try to go for the full screen, Nihal.
Okay, right. Is that okay?
Yes, fine.
Can I do without the video? Is that fine?
With video better, I think. So people will like to see you well.
Well, I can't access that. If I don't do that, I might. Okay.
Right. Okay. Okay. Anyway, whatever you feel comfortable. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Kirti, for the introduction. I recently remembered that one of the senior engineers told me that engineers don't retire. So I think there's a lot more work to do, and it's so interesting. And I remember how Dr. Valarthandri helped us a lot when we were doing this type of work with the Federation of Chambers projects, and he helped us in different ways. And also, I am very happy that the National Action Plan, actually, Mr. Mahindo was going to present that. But anyway, now I am very convinced that the implementation of the action plan is guaranteed. When I heard Mr. Priyanjit's comments, and I'm very thankful that, because the important thing is that whatever initiative has to be implemented and taken forward without any problem. So that is the most important thing. And let me start my presentation. Actually, my presentation is basically with regard to the project that we are doing now is more on the implementation side. Also, of course, even more at the beginning, even it's useful, but mostly this is for what we can do actually. And my intention is that at the end of this presentation, that all will realize where our dollars are, because we are very much short of dollars. We are craving, I mean, we are struggling, but the dollars are there. So you will realize that where the dollars are after this presentation. I'm sure the approach like 3R is very well known to most people because we started a long time back. But let me try to, try to recollect what we have done, so that we will take forward this wonderful approach in order to implement our project. So basically my context will be that I'll just give an understanding of the present plastic flow in Sri Lanka, then the different types of waste, and then cleaner production and 3R. Then of course, a little bit of introduction to microplastic, not so much scientific, but general things, right? Okay. Now, when it comes to the plastic inputs to the country, we know the general waste, like for example, we buy the virgin polymers and resins because we don't produce. Of course, we import a lot of plastic products, and then we also import a lot of semi-finished products, including spare parts, plastic spare parts, and then components of other products. For example, automobiles. The automobile has a tremendous amount of plastic, different kinds of plastic, because plastic is not only recyclable, but there are a lot of non-recyclable. We call them like thermosetting are there. And then, in fact, what Mr. Priyaji said was correct, that we should know, everybody should know this different kinds of plastics, and without like plastic and rakusek plastic rakusek plastic rakusek velatin sikar videra no plastic saladin rojane බැලුවම ප්ලාස්ටික් නැති ලෝකයක් නැහැ අතරම. ඉතින් ඒක නිසා අපි මේවා දන්නවා නම් මේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. එතකොට මේ another thing is that there is lot of unaccounted all these virgin polymers, and we have records like customs records, but then what we don't have, for example, is every product imported to Sri Lanka. If you go through every HS code, you will find that there is a plastic packaging. So that is really not like at least the initial input is not known. Then of course there is another thing coming, like some things are coming free. You know, this famous Japanese saying, "Tada des, dame des." The free things are not good. So anyway, what are the free things? We get ocean debris coming from like abandoned nets. We call it ghost nets. Then we know that there are ship accidents and accidents happening, and then as a result we might get plastics. Then of course in the passenger baggage, we sometimes always passenger baggages will have fair amount of plastics which is not accounted. And then of course we have the imported, now we don't import much waste, but anyway recycled materials are imported sometimes, and now also we have the local. So this is the basically the material input to the country. Now if you go through the 2018 plastic import, in fact I got this from the very interestingly, the National Audit Office has started doing performance audit reports, which you all can go through any time, and they give very, very good information. And this 2018 record says that about 342,000 tons in 2018 was imported as virgin materials, and the value is so much. And then we also have a lot of finished goods. And then specifically toys are mentioned. They are about 12,932. Probably why it was mentioned, there was a problem about toxic materials in toys. So maybe that's the reason that they mentioned this one. And then if you go you look at the different kinds of plastic, you find that LDP is the highest along with PVC. PVC is still used for water pipes and fittings. Then you get HDP, high density polyethylene, and polystyrene. Polystyrene comes in different ways, but polypropylene. So this kind of knowledge is also important, and also as Priyaji said, there is a resin code. A lot of people actually now, of course, it is known because there's a Gazette notification about implementation of the resin code. Anyway, this type of knowledge is also important to be imparted. And what are the main types of plastic waste that we come across? You get, of course, the municipal plastic waste, which is coming from the municipal solid waste. Actually, MSW has municipal plastic waste, mostly mixed up. Some are recyclable, some are non-recyclable. Then, of course, we have a very important the waste called the e-waste, electronic waste, the associated with electronic components. There's a definition. Then about clinical waste, mainly medical waste and like hospital waste, the clinical waste are important in the sense that they can be hazardous. And then, of course, industrial waste, which most of us are like interested in. Now, if you look at the, of course, this is the 2016 JICA report, but very soon, of course, this will be updated. You find that the generation is about 10,768 tons per day generation, but collection is only 3,458. But actually, this, even the Waste Management Authority recent report says still the collection is very much lower than the generation, and out of which Western Province is the highest, and the gap between the Western Province and the other provinces are very high. And also, out of the Western Province, you find that the Colombo district is very high. So, I mean, then if you do a Pareto chart, you might find that you have to only concentrate in about three provincial councils of the Western Province, and that itself you will reduce a lot. So there are simple things you can do with even with this kind of record, which are not that accurate, but still we can take some decisions. Now, with the composition of this given by CEA is polythene and plastic waste about 10.5%. But we, for all calculations, sometimes we take it as approximately 7%, because sometimes this particular the polythene and plastic waste may have non-recyclables and recyclables all mixed up. So, but 7% is a fairly good estimate, and that also will depend on the different provincial councils and DS divisions. Now, if you, I always like to do this because of it's important. Now, if you calculate on the basis of 7%, approximately there is 250 tons per day of plastics. And if you assume average price of rupees 50, I know a lot of people might not agree, because now it is much more than this. You will end up with approximately $18 million per annum. So this is where I start from, saying that we are not short of dollars. And recently the IGES, which actually supported the action plan also, they did a guideline for safe closure and rehabilitation of visible solid waste dump site in Sri Lanka very recently. And it is recorded that there are 339 dump sites, 20 tons per day waste is discharged, dumped, and again assuming about 7% plastics, you get 140 tons per day there, and that is valued about again $10.5 million US dollars. I purposely worked out in US dollars. So if you add this to the existing value now, every dump site, I'm not sure whether that is valued up to now. Every dump site will have an existing value, and then you can imagine how much it is, because it is very important to know the value. So thing is how to extract and how to minimize further dumping. Okay, that's the question. Now, when it comes to the vehicles, I just want to highlight, because this is also from a recent report on the predicatory inventory on action plan for sound management of the brominated plastics. It says now, if you take a motor car, the motor car has average PUR is polyurethane. Polyurethane is also plastic, but it's non-recyclable in the sense that it's a thermosetting and it's a different kind of plastic. But motor cars have 16 kilograms every the vehicle. Then if you take a bus, it's 100 kilograms. So you can work out this based on the number of vehicles imported or existing. And apart from this, you have other plastics, for example, ABS, polypropylene used in oil filters. Now, recently I went to a garage and I was chatting with it. Still, the lot of oil filters and air filters which has plastic, good plastics, are not collected properly. And there's a lot of value in that, and if you collect it properly, then you can do a lot of things. Because some of those oil filters are polypropylene, but of course, what we have to remember again is it's not only the plastic. There are additives which can be toxic. For example, most of the vehicles parts will have fire retardants. So you got to be careful in those things, but if you know those things, then you can manage it. Then of course there are other e-waste, for example, mobile phones. Mobile phone e-waste is, recently I went through a report done by two graduates of the University of Morocco, and they have given a very interesting, I can share it if anybody wants, the potential of mobile phone collection. And then of course there are a lot of other components of e-waste, and then in the air conditioner we have a lot of the plastic and photocopy machines, toners, you name it. I mean, if you look at very carefully, enough of plastics are there, not collected or not used. So now I have to speak about the improper waste management. Now this is also fairly old, but anyway, the figures are not that different. So far, the local authority collect only about 20%, but Colombo may be more, but overall about 20%. But the worst thing is the burning of plastics. I think it's 46.5, but some areas will be more. But this is a matter of concern, especially during the COVID days, where when the collection is low, you find that the burning has gone up. So, and then of course dispose into waterways. I would say 0.9 is low, but there is maybe more than this. So in fact, the Western Waste Management Authority of Western Province, called WMA, they have given a figure of the overall recycling rate is still about only 4%, but whereas the potential is much more. But during COVID time, it came down to even 1%. So but of course we must understand that our industry recycling rates are fairly good. I mean, when I was working at one big industry, we used to recycle at a very good rate. Now, I mean, they can even go up to 60%, and sometimes certain products you add, of course, within the standards limit. For example, you don't add recycled material to food grade plastics, so like that. But anyway, the recycling is fairly good, but still there is potential to develop more. So then still open dumping is still very high. So these are some of the things that we must remember about plastic waste management. These are some of the pictures. They will old, but then still there are things that you can see in streams. Of course, this is I'm just telling that it's destroying the nation, especially the future generation, because this is connected with a lot of health impacts. And recently there are a couple of good studies done by recently I listened to, I think, one Dr. Parakram from University of Morocco, Peradine. He gave a presentation at the Sustainable Consumption Production Forum. So there are good studies, but the important thing is that this should go to the people. They should understand that what you are doing is bad. As Keith said, that when the children are educated, they might tell the parents, look here, what you are doing is wrong. In fact, recently when I was discussing this, one officer of a government organization, he said, oh, television. So people know about this, but then knowing is not enough now. Now is the time that we have to take action, even if it hurts us. That's the important thing. Even if it hurts, we have to, I think, if you don't do anything, omission is very bad. So how do you change this scenario? So one thing is, I will not talk much about this, but going from a linear economy to circular economy has to be done. And then, of course, follow the good old cleaner production approach, which was taught to us by the UNEP. And then it tells you that the waste is a valuable resource. But people, it's so simple, I think it's not been implemented much. But there we have a CP national policy, and I think Mr. Serapiris, who was the first director of the National Cleaner Production Center, has done tremendous work in this area. There is a lot of potential to apply the simple concept. Not much of research. Of course, research is useful to really when it comes to implementation. But a simple approach is like the 5S. But I think that is something that everybody now should take up, including the politicians, decision makers. This simple concept should go to their mind. No. After we followed the CP program long time back, some time back, it is now in our blood, and we always see waste as a resource. And then, of course, applying 3R. 3R is something like implementation tool for even for clean production. Now, of course, this is the definition. I will not go too much on this, but it's a preventative environmental strategy which can be applied to process of production, even services. To what is happening is it increase overall efficiency and then reduce the risk to humans in health, safety, and even to the environment. Basically, the companies will like this because it is going to increase your profits, and then it will reduce the environmental and health impact. So that is a win-win solution. So this is why we should grab cleaner production and just apply it. So the CP methodology, now when it comes to CP methodology example, I was very fascinated by a very good paper presented at the recent International Conference on Environmental Governance, which was organized by CEA and Ministry of Environment. One school girl from one school in Colombo made an excellent presentation of what she saw on the beach, the different kinds of, she mentioned the way it is also, different kinds of plastics. And then she actually taught me or made me recollect the cleaner production approach, how he started asking questions. Now, what is the value of this? Why it is this? And then she also discussed how it came there. So I thought that is a good example to tell you what these methodologies. First of all, what you do is you observe as a team. Even in your organization, you make a team and you observe your waste streams. So in this case, plastics on the beach. Then, of course, important thing is that you must measure. Unless you measure, you don't realize the potential and the priorities to give attention. So in this case, like you weigh the different kinds of plastics on the beach. Then, of course, you must value it. Now, in plastic industry, now I remember when we were doing a plastic cleaner production audit in a plastic industry, there was a guy, whenever there was one operator, whenever he puts additives to the resin, the powder, he used to drop few grams. So he thought, okay, this is my poddare anything, okay, gadak nae. Namut, okay, attarama manala balala, you know that even the colorants and even the master batch is very, very expensive. So when you give the value only, he will raise his head and then he will start doing something. So you must value it. Then, of course, then you find, once you value, then you must find causes. I mean, it's not that when you see some waste, doing some immediate action is good, but like cleaning up. But it's also good, better, if you can find out where it is coming from and do something. For example, now in this case, he has mentioned that, okay, it's coming from the drain and then drains carry it to the canal will carry it to the river. Or sometimes even directly disposed to the ocean also. So she was asking questions, how, why not, and all these things, and then came out with the set of like causes. Once you know the cause, then you can find, make the solution. Then this is exactly what the cleaner production methodology or we call it the CP audit also does in any organization, including, and then we will find that even if you can prioritize and take action even 3 or 4, you will find that you are solving an environment problem as well as you are making your organization more profitable. So this is something I observed last week, a beautiful beach. This is it's a knitting. And then the 3R, of course, 3R is basically, now 3R is very much used in the action plan that we recently developed to manage plastic. Where you don't like, you don't take immediate action of like doing something to the waste, but what you do is you try to reduce. First of all, initially, of course, if you can avoid, it's better, but you try to reduce your plastic material or whatever the consumption. Then you find that the next, once you reduce, there may be certain things that you can do to even reuse it. Then even after doing that, you might find that not all you can reuse. So then you have the other option, next option now, recycle. And this is the what you call the waste management hierarchy. Then failing everything, like, okay, even after doing that, you may have some residues. Those residues you can use to recover energy or make oil or things like that, but make sure that you are doing it for the residual plastics. In fact, in the action plan is very well clearly stated, it is only the residual plastics. And then finally, of course, you can dispose. So this is the basically what the 3R means. And I'll give you some examples. Now, we have a very good Sri Lankan success story. I think people should not forget this. In the 1990s, for manufacture of water fittings and pipes, we were using the JIS standard, Japanese International Standard, where the lengths of the fittings are long and the diameters are too much, and they're over-designed. So there was a decision by the government to change from JIS to ISO standard, and the companies very well supported. Even I worked in one company. They all said, okay, they gave us a deadline, and we changed our molds, not new molds, change the molds, existing molds. And then I think unfortunately we didn't calculate it, but I'm sure there was a drastic reduction in import of PVC, and as a result, reduction of waste. And similarly, now, even now, the water board, SLSI and the PUSCL have a phased out program, replace PVC to PE, HDPE and PP, merely for the reason of the health and the reduction of toxicity. Because PVC as a waste, if you burn, is worse than other materials. So therefore, this is a very good action that already has been taken, and let's support it. And then, of course, we talked about the reduction of SUPs, single-use plastic. Single-use plastic, I have discussed, they are enormous. For example, a lot of people forget, even in electrical, even all types of bulbs and covers, they have plastic material, you won't use it again. So it's single-use only. So shoe industry, like you name it, every industry has, it's not only the bags and sachets, but there are enormous number of SUPs. So what action you can do in SUPs and especially packaging waste? Now, one thing is that we have to adopt a proper definition of SUPs in Sri Lanka. And then, of course, there is a move to register all SUP importers and producers. I think it is been done now. Then, of course, there is a certain amount of research is required on safe use of post-consumer plastic waste in packaging, which we don't do now. By law, we are not allowed to use post-consumer plastic waste in packaging, especially in the food grade packaging. Yeah, I'm talking about food grade packaging. So we can do this. And then also we must see there are not very much required things. For example, now plastic book covers used by the students. Is it necessary? Can't be enough because there is a large quantity of fairly thick plastic materials are used in book covers, and sometimes the teachers insist on them. So we have to think about those practices also. Right. Then we come to we come to reduce and reduce. This is, I'm just, because Mr. Mahinda was unable to come, I'm just highlighting some of the goals. In fact, the action plan has 16 goals divided into the 3 R's. What is the reduction? And in this, in the reduce and prevention phase, there are 4 goals. For example, the last one, achieve 30% reduction in plastics in packaging by 2030. So like that, there are very good goals set after a lot of discussion. So I'm sure with the help of the private sector and the other stakeholders, we will be able to implement this very much. And same way, this is for the reduction of marine plastics. There are 3 goals which are set. One is reduction of marine plastic pollution comprising macro and microplastic flowing into the ocean through land-based activities, 80% by 2030. Now, I think the many actions have been taken to in this regard. And then reduction of plastic waste from industrial and service sectors, other than packaging waste. Now, industrial sector, as you know, has tremendous potential. in reducing plastic consumption and plastic waste. And of course, the implementation of the EPR. So I'm just highlighting two things. What we can do is we can share the link to the action plan, which is in the IG's website. Useful. I have already shared with some companies, so we can do that. Then alternative products, I think we will discuss, and we are very happy to hear Ms. Sally telling about the wonderful work he's doing in the alternative products. This is something that Mr. Keith Gunadhan gave me after attending the APO recently. The APO, I think the international conference on Industry 4.0, where this chap from Bangladesh is making economically making items from water hyacinth. So he is doing it as a business, is doing it very well. More information I think Kirti may be able to tell. So alternative products is something that will reduce plastic consumption, and also importantly, not only plastic consumption, the toxicities in plastics and the safe disposal. So then this is a very interesting thing. Normally reuse, people never thought about repair. Now, even if you go to the European Union, they don't call only reuse, they say repair and reuse. Because actually, recently I read that Europeans have champions the right to repair. Now, in fact, they are one of the first to implement the Right to Repair Act. I'm waiting till Sri Lanka does it, because Sri Lankans love to innovate and repair. I mean, we always like, even when we were small, or even I can remember even our parents, they always like to repair things. Mainly to, I mean, it's not so much like business sense, but anyway, it's something in our blood. I mean, even cars. So let's use this one. I mean, now I'll show you one example of, now this was a water hose which was thrown in a backyard. So I got this back 5 years back. Now still I am using it very well. So I have repaired it and I'm reusing it. So if you read this book, Junkyard Planet, you will get a lot of ideas. Recycling is the most important thing about recycling is it should be a good business. So why a lot of recycling industries fail is because they are not doing it as a good business. What you mean by business is that you have to deliver recycled products, plastics, which is acceptable by the user. So that's the important thing. So there are certain things that we have to do to improve recycling. One is the streamlining the segregated collection. In Sri Lanka, still the segregation is not mandatory. So I think it's high time that we must make it mandatory and tell people how to do that, because there are difficulties of doing that. But try to do that. Even like in Japan, they even clean before segregation. So there are certain things we have to do in this respect. Even when people are putting up recycling plants, material recovery plants, they have to concentrate a lot on the collection side, and otherwise it will fail. So of course we need a lot of testing and research into understanding especially how the additives behave and the toxicities of recycled plastics, especially how to identify the different kinds of plastic when it comes, whether it has fire retardants or things like that. I mean, there are ways to doing that. It's not impossible. And also about the recycling process quality. For example, the residual content in recycling. Because as you know, the monomers are the smallest unit that the polymer is made of. The residual monomers are very bad. So, I mean, those are the things that now in Sri Lanka, unfortunately, as Mr. Priyanjit also said, we have, myself and Mr. Pedis has visited a large number of recycle plants. They are the worst polluters because they think that it's just solution for some solution to get rid of your waste, but it is a highly professional and which can be taught to even small people. So this is one thing that we have given in the action plan also, and also we have given a separate concept note on how to improve the recycling business. And also, of course, it has to be resource efficient, and maybe that in time to come we can have a very simple, even a certification scheme which will encourage them. So basically, these are some of the things that we can do by clean production and by applying 3R to manage plastic. One thing is you have to design your product correctly, including the right material has to be chosen, and see that it is recyclable. So you have to improve the recyclability of the product, and then handle material including additives. How you add, and sometimes the use of additives has to be in the design. So you have to be careful even in that stage. And then try to use the least number of colors. Well, more colors means very difficult to recycle. And of course, I suggest that why do you want to use even food, non-food grade? I think we must use food grade colors for everything. I can remember one of my bosses, actually was the owner of the very famous plastic company. We were producing waste paper baskets. In the standard, you don't have to use food grade. But then he told me, do you know who is using your waste paper basket? There are people in the villages, they use to store water, chilies. So if you know that unintentional things are happening, which you can't stop, you have to be more responsible. So he said, don't use non-food grade and use only food grade colors. So, and then you have to design your, plastic industry means not only material, it has to be the machine and the mold. So we have to see that you maintain the molds, otherwise by good maintenance, good design, you can reduce the material wastage. For example, like flash. I know some factories, flash cutting is a different department of the factory. So you can see the cost. Then using hot runner molds. When you use hot runner molds, you don't have runners and gates. In fact, recently we visited 2-3 companies. They have converted their molds to run on hot runner molds. So they have calculated and found out, okay, how they can recover the cost. Then of course, on-site recycling of runners that is being done even now. The process control is very important in plastic industry, and including measurement, because if you don't measure your processes, the temperatures, etc., then you, for example, thickness controlling, film making, and then monitoring, you maintain your records, and then with the records you can find out what are the problems. So these are some of the things, the simple things in process control, you can reduce material wastage. Then very important is the cycle time determination and how to control them. Because a lot of companies, I know, big companies, of course, they are doing it. They have automated systems also. But cycle time control is important. Otherwise, capacity done cycle time means you are losing your other factors and speed of the injection, for example, and then you might pack too much, and then that means waste of material. So, and then one of the Japanese guys who told me, you don't need equipment to see whether you are doing well. You weigh, once in a way, you weigh your products. Like you're weighing babies. When you weigh babies, if the weight is going down, you know that something is wrong. So you can use simple things you have in the factory, as well as use equipment. So I mean, instruments. So there are so many things we can do. I think these are things that were thought long time back also. But people thought, okay, these are not that important. But now I think every cent is important. So I think we should implement clean production and 3R again. And of course, the maintenance system has to be good. Otherwise, you will find out your downtime is high, and again you waste material. So these are things, that's some of the few things that I can just list it. Well, this is recently I saw how one of the exhibitions, how one of the recyclers from India, how he has done the recycling, he has done the recycled pellets and graded it according to even the process, blow molding grade, injection grade. So for any buyer, I mean, he willingly will buy. Otherwise, we are not sure whether this is injection grade. I know that once assuming it's injection grade, I use a blow molding grade, I almost broke the machine. So because of that only, you have to do your process improvement, and there are a lot of things you can do, but it might cost a little bit, but then you can recover this fast, and then you are helping the environment and helping the future generation. All right, now EPR ideas, of course, I am going to touch.
Yeah, we are a little behind the schedule. We have to.
Right. Okay, I'm just finishing.
Yeah.
So I think that one of the most important thing EPR idea is every importer, retailer, producer or service provider, he should know what my goods, what is happening to my goods after it leave my premises, after it's sold. So that understanding must be there. Then of course there you can use different alliances, networking for collection, and then of course there are certain things that you can easily implement. For example, I was thinking why the credit cards, bank cards which are made out of plastics, the banks can easily have a very good system to now, because those days they used to collect, but they are not doing it now. As a result, it might go to the dump yards. So a certain amount of simple things, easily controllable things can be done. So microplastic, I'm not touching very much, but I'm just showing you basically it's less than 5 millimeter. We classify as microplastic, this basic definition. And then see, this is what I observe in front of a factory, where the pellet leakage. When they are unloading pellets, the pellets leak, but this is actually less than 5 millimeters. It can be classified as microplastics. And see this broom made out of the PET fiber. You can notice how the PET fibers slowly go into it. What I want to emphasize is there are good recycled products, but you must now see the microplastic generation potential of the product also, because ultimately you think it's a very good thing you are doing, but ultimately you are also doing a bad thing. So you can have get your thinking cap on these things. Then this one, every time we cut a PVC pipe, this is what I purposely did and found out how much the powder is. This powder, what will happen to this? This is microplastics. Either it will go to the air or it might go to waterways. So these are simple things. Of course, these are netting used in construction. I really don't know how they are disposing this. Lot of netting is used in when you building construction. So basically, there are other things we should forget. There are plastic coated materials, metallized materials, which should not be disposed. Even like, for example, the non-stick pans. So lot of area that we can think about. So that we go from like linear economy to circular economy. This of course, so sorry, no time to explain very much, but basically we must observe and then value and then act. So plastic industry, now you realize that plastic industry can save and earn dollars. So thank you very much, and sorry for taking too much of time.
Thank you, Nihal. Your presentation is very interesting. If we had more time, of course, then that would have been nice and enlightening everyone. I see Dr. Mushtaq Ahmed also in the audience now. So let me first finish Mr. Engineer Senapidis, and then give a small introduction to Dr. Mushtaq, and let him start with the question and answer session with some comments from him. Mr. Senapidis is a mechanical engineer from University of Peradeniya. He has over 25 years of experience in manufacturing industry in different capacities. From late 90s to he became an environmental engineer specializing in cleaner production. He was the founder, director of the National Cleaner Production Center. Now he works as the Director of Business and Industry Development Services, providing consultancy on energy and sustainability. He is the Chairman of the National Expert Committee on Climate Change Mitigation and President of Sri Lanka Responsible Care Council. So let me invite the engineer Senapidis to share some of his experience and address the countermeasure to scoping study. Over to you, Sena. Sena, you have to unmute.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, can.
And see my screen also, is it moving?
Yes.
Sorry, it's moving, no? I think, right. Anyway, thank you very much. I am not going to talk. Most of the things are already discussed by the previous presenters. I believe in a significant contribution of plastics in the national economy. So I believe it's very important, I think, material for us as a packaging material and for transportation, and also for the sports, and also for medicines. Everywhere in the electronics, plastics have become so important. So I'm not going to discuss them. Already, I think we have taken a lot of time. Our issues are the negative issues of plastics. I'm sure we have a big problem. Though plastic is so valuable, it's choking our ecosystems. And it has actually causing a lot of damage to our fauna and flora, the biodiversity. So because of that, and also it's causing health problems for us, we are now talking about it. So we know plastics is everywhere. I hope you can see these pictures, and also the damage to the animals. So we know how many the turtles died from the previous shipwreck, but we don't know how many are dying because of eating plastics. And unfortunately, we don't know how much we dispose the plastics. And
Send your slides are not moving.
Yeah, sorry. I think there is a problem with my. So I will quickly just go back.
You can go like that. Yes, correct.
Yeah, right. So the issues are there, the negative, the thing. So we know these are the problems, and the animals eating, and also the issues with plastic. Nihal very clearly explained. So what I want to say is actually why we are doing this. The project IUCN is doing the project. We did a scoping study covering the background, and the project has to complete by March 2022, and we are planning. We need the most important thing is tracking at the moment where the plastic waste is, and then maybe take some action on maybe capacity building, outreach, and even prevention of plastic. This is where the industries and all the others should come into the picture. So, sorry, therefore, we did a perception survey, and I think Kirti mentioned, if anybody is interested, you can again take part. Those who have not taken part, we can share with you the link to this one. And we found that there are a lot of the people views about plastic. Some people do not like plastic, where some people say, yeah, plastics is important, but then we have to improve the recycling. So this was actually done, and we did a capacity mapping. This is where the industries are important. Why we have invited you? Most of the industries have adequate capacity. As I think, as earlier Priyanjit mentioned, that there are issues with the people not knowing how to recognize plastics, and even how to eliminate plastic from not only the rivers but also from the land as well. So we have to find out hotspots and tracking them, not only for the project but after that. The sustainability of this is very important. We have to establish a national mechanism to do this. Only the plastic industry can get together and do this, because in a way the brand owners, the plastic manufacturers, and even recyclers are to some extent responsible for them going into the rivers and even to the land. So this is where we need actually something, a contribution from you. When I say contribution, I think we need to probably help people to understand. Other people can actually, we can just teach them. We can go and do lectures, or we can do even electronic media. We can use media, social media, all this to educate them. But is it enough? But I think industries have to probably take a leading role or a proactive role in this. And whether the conventional awareness and training will not be sufficient at grassroots level, because as Nihal mentioned, about 46% of the plastics at rural areas are just burned. They are using sometimes even as the igniting the fires, like actually fires, starting fires, they use this plastic. So these are important things we have to understand. So this outreach should probably try to look at, and as we know, the plastic recycling is an issue. We have to collect them. The collection is the biggest problem for the recyclers. So probably we have to stop burning and stop throwing it to the land, and then maybe we have to educate these people in a more dynamic way and probably in a different way. And we have some questions for you. I'm sure Keith has shared with you as a Google form, and also I think separately. We would like you to give actually some, your views on them, because we want to know what can be done. Industry point of view, we know that we can ask general people, but the plastic industry and plastic recyclers, as well as the main brand owners, should take the lead and tell this is what we have to do. Or if you don't know, then you should actually tell, okay, tell us what to do. And we need actually your responses for that. And we are ready to work with you. And are you ready to work with the national initiative? Maybe United Nations Environment will help us, maybe World Bank will help. You know, there is a Alliance for Ending Plastic Waste, international initiative. There are several other initiative leadership group for eliminating plastic waste. The global initiatives are there, but unless we have our local initiative where the industries take a lead role, like Priyanjit mentioned, I think we have to get everybody working together. And Miss Sally also said that we will do that. I think there are a few industries who are already doing some work, which I don't want to mention names at the moment. Some of them are not here. So it's important that we all work together. So we would like to ask you whether you are willing to take an initiative, and please write to Ms. Keerthi Gunawardena, and we need little time for discussion. So with this, I think I will stop this one, because we have to be responsible for the world. We have to make sure that our future is safe. So I hope that you will be able to contribute to this course where Anand mentioned what's happening, and Novin mentioned what's happening globally, because we are not alone in this world. We have to work together, everybody, to make this plastic a significant contributor to the economy, but not it's not a polluter to creating problems for the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Sena, for your valuable presentation. I think you gave a clear message. You know what is the responsibility of each one of us. Now, without taking much of time, our first speaker, who was supposed to be Dr. Mushaq Ahmed, now he's here with us. So let me give a very brief introduction of him. So he has a wide experience in this area, so his comments will be very good. I would like to suggest him, give some idea, thoughts for this audience. Today, our audience is actually the manufacturers and the recyclers, the plastic manufacturers and recyclers mainly. So let me give a brief introduction of Dr. Mushaq Ahmed. Dr. Mushaq has a doctorate in environment and resource economics from the Hiroshima University, Japan, and master's from the Bedford in UK, postgraduate diploma in transport and civil engineering from Pakistan. Of course, he has wide experience in various areas with relation to UN. He presently works as the regional coordinator for chemical, water, and air quality sub-program, regional coordinator for resource efficiency sub-program, and Switch Asia RPAC project manager, United Nations Environment Program. So let me give the audience to Dr. Mushaq, and I will kindly request you to make some closing remarks and whatever the message that you have to give in this forum. After that, since we are just on the closing time, after that, if there are interested people, we will take a few questions. Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you, sir. So it's a pleasure to again connecting back with I call my community, because we started in 2007, the first project in Matale with Dr. Sena as the head of NCPC. And then we had done quite many projects, including the waste agriculture, biomass, and so on. And recently, I am also on the UN country team Sri Lanka, because UNEP is not a resident agency, so I represent UNEP. So I attend all the meetings, and I was actively involved in the Colombo Green Development Plan there, and also involved in the COP side events organized by UN country team Sri Lanka. And then also we are doing quite a lot of work on the SDG 12. Sustainable Development Goal 12, which is a responsible consumption and production. And again, NCPC is a partner from there, but that's for the South Asia. And then with Sakib also in Colombo, we have done on the sustainable public procurement. Now, these all things are really evolving into the one that's a circular economy. Now, as we work quite closely with the private sector, and the private sector is a multi-layered, no? So on the one hand, you may find the multinational companies like a Unilever, Coca-Cola, Nestle, and so on. And with the increasing agreements, and also there's negotiations for the possible plastic treaty at the global level and so on. So those multinationals already setting up their targets for recycled content in their packaging and the real recycling of their packaging. So for that sake, on the one hand, they are also trying to create the closed loop recycling. So that means, because as we know that in the developing countries, the biggest challenge comes from the waste management, which is not yet at par. So if we go on that way, that plastics go in the mixed waste, then the sorting stations sort out and all these things, then it becomes very, very cumbersome, costly, and also all the plastics get polluted, contaminated with other, even dirty and so on. So basically the closed loop recycling is picking up the pace, like especially with the PET and so on. So that's one area you may like to look into, that how you can be the part of this closed loop recycling, whether it be the Unilever, Coca-Cola, or local brands and so on. That's number one idea. Number two idea for the private sector to really look across the value chain. As we have seen that because the recycling depends on the material, the type of the polymer, the type of the product. So again, to create the good business out of the recycling, it's important to improve upstream eco-design. That's a type of the material, the polymers and the product types and so on, which can easily be recycled with the highest efficiency. So that's a number two idea, to really look across a full value chain in Sri Lanka to do that. Number three is the policies. Suppose like in Thailand, where I'm stationed as a regional office, also has a challenge which we are negotiating, that pet to pet means food packaging cannot be from the recycled plastics. And that's the biggest challenge. Though even we see the street food and so on, those plastic quality is very low, but still it's called from the like a new materials instead of recycling. So that's Sri Lanka also have to look into the policies where the private sector can work with the government to improve the policies that can benefit both to the private sector, as I say, as your business, but more important to the environment and the communities and so on. Like recently, last week in Osaka, Japan, they started a new law that communities are now responsible for their own, like especially PET and packaging plastics. And they have a partnership with the Association of the Plastic Waste Management, and all the recyclers are members to the association, like a Federation of Industries and so on. So basically, that's another way that Sri Lanka can create a communities where the recyclers are part of the community and they like have a closed loop community recycling. So these are few of the thoughts, but as I mentioned, that is very important. Plastic, as even in COVID and all this, the plastics were like really high value for mask and everything. But more important, how to reduce the mismanaged plastic waste, and more important, how to create the value out of the recycling from the plastic. So on those thoughts, we will continue our discussions. But again, like as I say, Sri Lanka is my home. Since 2007, I've been involved, and even now I'm a part of the UN country team Sri Lanka. So any suggestions, anything, please feel free to write to me or through Dr. Sena. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Doctor, for your valuable inputs. Right now, and the advice to the people who's already involved in the plastic industry. We can take up few questions. We are already 10 minutes behind. But however, if there are, I'm sure that there'll be questions and suggestions and things like that from the audience. If there is, you can raise your hand or you can unmute and speak.
May I ask a question from Dr. Mustak?
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Mustak. Actually, I think that your explanation about the community recycling is quite a potential one. But I just want to ask you now, as you very well mentioned, the recycling itself has to be done in a very professional manner because you are dealing with polymers and maybe additives and other things. So in this case, I think when it comes to the detection of or the quality control, I think that is where the government may have to give or maybe government or any other organization give some sort of assistance in instrumentation and training. Because in fact, one thing is sometimes it go out of control when people start collecting. We have this Sampath Kendra, which is set up by the UDA. Yeah, they had a very good collection system, but anyway, they could not identify toxic and non-toxic materials. As a result, for example, now there was a case where the toys were imported to Sri Lanka. It had certain amount of toxicities, but you might find that it goes out of control and it goes to the recycler, and then he doesn't know how it came. And so those are some of the things that we might need advice how to get over these things. Thank you, Doctor.
So you have to unmute and speak.
Sorry, I was muted. Sorry. So basically, if we go with the subsidies, there are different challenges. So better to we go with the internalizing the all the costs. So suppose in one country, when this waste to energy was subsidized, and many incineration plants, they were burning coal as an additive to create more energy and get the subsidies of a waste to energy, which was not the true part. So plastics should be priced correctly. That is important. When you price the plastics packaging correctly, then you will create the incentive for the recyclers and everything. It's the same when suppose I was supporting the sugar industry and the gray water. So in the cooling towers is a huge, and when government started paying the charges for the gray water, then all the industries start recirculating, recycling that one. So you have to price correctly. That's number one. Number two, even in the developed countries, only PET or packaging waste plastics are being recycled to the more than 50% or the 70% that way. For material to material recycling, we are talking as some countries even call the recycling from a material to energy. So the whole point is that if you price right, packaging and all this, like you remember when we were kids, we used to buy the Coca-Cola in the glass bottle, and we used to keep some money with the shopkeeper. So we bring the empty bottle and then we receive the money. So that means that was the price of the bottle. So if you really make that way, then all the good plastics, first, there will be good plastics, and number two, those will return to the recyclers. So this is my suggestion, to really price it correctly and have a standards for the technical standards for the polymers and the products.
Point is very well taken. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor, for your input. Is there any more questions? We can take one or two more questions and wind up the session. I see some of the leading manufacturers of various plastic items. American Water is here. Do you like to any comment, anything you want to make in this forum?
Yeah, Mr. Kirti, I'm Imran from American Water. I operate as the chief operating officer. Now, we actually being a factory which is situated in very close proximity to the Kalani River, we are very much involved with the Central Environment Authority, right, in handling certain projects. And as you all know, I think there was also a program where the president kickstarted some time ago. I think it's around 4 to 5 months back, where like each of certain factories have to overlook a certain section in the river itself. So we are involved there, and we are very much very closely working with the authorities concerned.
Okay.
And also one more thing, we also do have an association. It goes as Sri Lanka Bottled Water Association. And apart from that, there is also the PET and the polymer associations. So if you could maybe have like a sort of meeting with those associations, getting themselves also involved in this program, I personally feel that it would be much more effective in handling these things, because like one of the presenters mentioned, this microplastics, I think it's going to be quite a big impact. And I think one of the previous participants also, I think from Phoenix, mentioned saying that in sort of educating people as a country and a community, we are very weak, right? So if you could implement various programs, of course we can also sponsor whatever events, and getting this message across to the grassroots levels. That's where I feel we could get into the correct track.
Sure. Okay, thank you for your comments. Actually, what we also try to do is to educate more and more people on plastic pollution and how they can also join hands in this initiative. That's what we're trying to do, as well as Dr. Anand also mentioned, what are the initiatives already and collectively we have taken together. So that's our idea. Thank you so much for offering your services. We will take a note that we will we'll get in touch with the Sri Lanka Bottled Waters Association, and what is the other organization? Polymer.
It's the PET and the Polymer Associations.
PET and the Polymer Association. Okay, so we will get in touch with them. And we will invite them for one of the next sessions. Can we use you as a coordinating person for that?
Yeah, certainly you can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We will take one more question and wind up the session. If anybody is there, have a question, suggestion, or anything, we can give a chance. Looks like no questions. So then I think without making a long concluding remarks, I would again say, as Mr. Engineer Senapiris mentioned, what we should do is we have to rally around together to see that, less pollution, or from finally, now as it is, there is a lot of pollution on plastic, and a lot of plastic goes to the rivers and finally end up at sea. So we have to minimize this during the process. If we can do that, as Dr. Anand mentioned, that we have a lot of approaches in the countermeasures 2 program. say, using the mobile apps and, informing about the plastic wastage places. So then the communities around you will know about that, then there can be control. And, various other techniques used in this project was explained by Dr. Anand clearly. I think by and large, if you're a manufacturer, using plastic, I know for sure there is no way that the world can go ahead without plastic also, because the next alternative, if okay, against the plastic shopping bag, so then you have to go for paper bags. Paper bags, if you want to go for shopping purposes, then you have to have a strong bags. So then you have to go for high fiber bags. So then again, you will end up in cutting a lot of trees. So the next alternative, instead of the plastic bottles, then you have to go for glass bottles. Glass bottles again, you need lot of money and energy, and there will be more carbon footprint to manufacture glass bottles. So therefore, when you see the cost benefit on the whole thing, so nothing wrong in using plastic, but we have to be very mindful after using what you are going to do with this plastic waste. So passing that message to you, and think about it and educate the people around you. And we also will come up with many programs, videos, audios, and things like that to educate the children, educate the general public on these areas. And of course, collectively, your ideas will be really valuable in this endeavor. We have put one question Google form on the chat box. Please try to answer that and give your thoughts and ideas, which can be very valuable in the future for our initiatives. Thank you for being with us all this time, and we really appreciate almost about 20 minutes we are behind. Thank you for staying with us and continue support to us all the time.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. We will then end the session.